Hey everybody, it's Ken. So I've got my good buddy and fellow Rich Dad advisor, Andy Tanner, and he's got his two kids here, Zack and David. Hey guys.
Hi.
Hi, everybody.
12 and 14 years old. So, I think the reason why, I wanted you guys on the show is, well, one, what are people teaching their kids, number one, but two, isn't this a great time to do it? Like everyone's home, everybody's in quarantine. So, what are you actually allowing your kids to do every single day? Well, I know for sure that what Marcy and Andy, are doing with their kids, and these kids are going to be force of reckoning, when they get older. Let me tell you. So I first saw this in Spain. We were all together in Barcelona, right, guys?
Yeah.
And they did this, this monetary and fiscal policy, in front of thousands of people. And this is a great time because the government's adding all this quantitative easing right now, and they're getting this PPP program and this emergency program and the stimulus checks, and the unemployment's gone up and all this stuff. So we're flooding the economy right now with money. So guys, I'm going to let you guys teach everyone now the difference between fiscal and monetary policy for the beginner.
For the beginner, huh?
Go as advanced as you want.
We started talking about this as a family when, how old were you when you first started talking about fiscal policy, David?
6 or 7.
6 or 7. And we were down in Paraguay one time, and Robert Kiyosaki, we met the mayor. And he said, hey, Mr. Mayor, sit down and let these guys, straighten you out. And I was embarrassed, But, okay, so tell me about if you boil it down and make it simple, as short as you can say it, what is fiscal policy, David?
Taxes and spending.
Taxes and spending. Who's in charge of it?
The Congress.
Congress. And are they doing a good job?
No.
Well, I don't know. What does balancing a budget mean?
It means you make more than you spend.
Well, ideally, that would be it. So that's a little bit on fiscal policy. Now, what's monetary policy?
It's the rate and printing money.
So they set the rate and they print the money. And who does that? Who's in charge of that? The Fed. And you remember who's in charge? It used to be
Jerome Powell.
Used to be Janet Yellen. Now it's Jerome Powell. Is he doing better in Congress?
No, he's
doing worse.
No.
Okay, well, so we talk about monetary and fiscal policy, and it all begins like what we're doing right now is we play the game cash flow a lot. And that's really where, you guys have learned a lot of your financial education, because if you can share with your kids what a basic financial statement is, I think that's something they could teach in school if they knew how. And so, I wouldn't say we're all financial wizards here, but if you can understand that basic financial statement, I think that's the start. So fiscal policy is what?
Of taxes and spending.
And who sets it?
The Congress.
The Congress. And what's monetary?
Rate and printing money.
And who sets that?
The Fed.
And the interplay between those guys is what happens. Now, what happens when they print money?
The value of the currency goes down.
That's right. And so we have this here. What's this right here? Why don't you show them what it is?
It's a 100 trillion Zimbabwe dollar.
Yes.
It's $100 trillion Zimbabwe dollar. And we set that back there. In fact, look at this. I've got almost the exact same display Kenny has right there.
On the silver.
The silver. And next to that, we have held down, we have a paperweight. So what's this right here, David?
It's gold.
That's gold, or it's lead that we painted, one or the other. But no, that's a 10-ounce bar of gold. And we keep this as a paperweight for the $100 trillion. And it reminds us what real money is and what real money isn't. And so those are fun object lessons. In fact, David, you remember when they had Career Day?
Yeah.
So tell them about Career Day and what happened.
We brought a bar of gold, and we had everybody hold it, and it was they didn't think it was going to be heavy, and it brought everybody's hand down because they didn't expect it was going to be that heavy.
Yeah. Everyone came to.
But it was pretty funny because
There's gold in there.
All the it's like Zach said, all the dads came, and there were great dads. There were lawyers and firefighters, and they said, well, what do? We go, well, we teach investing a little bit. We're going to talk about investing. So we had all 4 asset classes represented. We let them pass around a little bit of gold. And we started with like 3 kids in the first session, but the word got out and they're like, hey, there's gold in there, wall to wall by the time we were done. But we spend a lot of time playing the game cash flow during the quarantine. And these guys like that, right?
Yeah, it's fun.
And we talk as a family about monetary and fiscal policy. And we do a lot of drawing on the board where I'll draw, the game is like this. I'll draw a picture and these guys try to figure out what goes where.
Can you do that? Can you show everybody?
What do you guys think? You want to?
Let's do it.
Okay. So the first thing we were talking about this week is we're talking about why people get in trouble during coronavirus and what can make someone struggle. So maybe we'll do this. We'll share the screen. See if we can do this. Okay. Can you still see us?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll turn this way a little bit and I'll draw some stuff and then maybe the boys, we can talk a little bit about what it is. So the first thing that's very important is this right here. What's this called that I'm drawing right here?
Financial statement.
Financial statement. That's exactly right. And in this column goes what?
Income.
What's next?
Expenses.
Expenses. What's next?
Assets.
Assets. What's next?
Liabilities.
Liabilities. And the one thing that we all share in life, whether you're a business or an individual or a church or a school or a government, is we have expenses, right?
Yep.
And that's what are some, for a family, what would be some expenses?
Food, clothes,
medical care,
medicine,
not house.
Shelter,
Yeah.
that type of stuff.
Ice cream.
Yeah, ice cream. Well, that's Dad's expense. That's my fault, right? COVID-19 is turning into COVID-21 and then 22 pounds and then 23 pounds. But this is a way we've kind of taught it that's been kind of fun is our expenses things that are in the past or things that are always new?
New.
What do you think? New bills, right?
Yeah, new.
Yeah, every month we get new bills. And so income, we might say that's kind of like new money, right? And so if you have new bills and you always have new money coming in, is that a nice thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's cash flowing, right?
Yeah.
You know, currency, the word currency comes from the water current or electric current. It's moving, right?
Yeah.
It's moving. So what would happen, guys? Let's draw another financial statement.
Yeah.
What would happen if you know the expenses, we have income, expenses, assets, liabilities. What would happen if all of a sudden someone was working at maybe a restaurant or they had another job that people had to gather, and all of a sudden the government says, sorry, no more new money for you. Does that make the expenses go away?
No.
No, doesn't go away. They keep going. So if you don't have any new money coming in, what kind of money do you have to come up with?
The old money.
The old money. And where's that?
In the assets.
Yeah, maybe we bought some stock, you know, a long time ago. Maybe we bought some gold. Maybe we shoved some money in the mattress. Yeah. But what's scary is all the people that struggled and lost their job, they had to figure out which box you know, the money would come from. So now it looks like that's the way the cash is flowing. Now, is that going to last forever?
No.
Why not?
Because eventually you'll run out of old money.
Eventually, it doesn't. It's old, right?
Yeah.
You'll run out eventually.
Yeah,
so what do we draw right here usually to symbolize that? Maybe an hourglass?
Yeah, an hourglass.
So there's an hourglass. Okay, well, that's fine. And so that's a cash flow pattern that is interesting. So here's another financial statement. Given to me again. What do I put in here?
Income, expenses, assets,
liabilities. All right, so let's say this family sits down at the kitchen table and they say, well, we have no new money because we lost our job, and we have no old money because we cashed in all our gold. And one thing that's really tough about this is, you'd hate to have to sell your assets.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. I'll ask you this question. If you were in this hourglass situation right here and you were having to use your old money, you say, maybe we got 4 months of old money left. Mm-hmm. Do you get a choice to sell your assets, or do you have to?
You have to sell it for cheap.
What kind of price do you think you're going to get if you have to sell it?
A cheap
price, the first cheap you get.
You're going to have to take the first thing you get. And this is really rough when people have debt service to pay. Because when you have debt service to pay, either in a margin call in a stock account or even in a business like Kenny's, if you got to service that debt, you might be selling some stuff off at prices you're not really thrilled about. So that's
so this is what's happening right now, right here in the second column.
That's exactly right.
The middle column, people are using old money because they don't have their paychecks coming in anymore. And that's why we teach passive income.
It's exactly right. The cash flow pattern's much different.
Yeah.
So let's say that hourglass goes, we're out of new money, we're out of old money. What's the only money left?
You have to borrow money.
Oh, we got to borrow money, huh?
Yeah.
You got to borrow. So you have a credit card with a few $1,000s on it. And is that going to last forever?
It's another hourglass.
Another hourglass. So you say, well, maybe we go 4 or 5 months on that, and look how it changes our cash flow pattern now. Our cash flow pattern looks like this, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting, boys, is as you get older, you'll start to recognize these cash flow patterns, and this can help you make better decisions as a businessman. Yeah. Watch this right here. This one has a name, and we call this one the rat race. So this is when people have a job and they have the rat race, and they try to get new money to pay their bills. Mm-hmm. This cash flow pattern right here will change colors. This is called a 401k plan, where people stop working and they try to sustain themselves with old money. And this one right here, David knows, this is what the U.S. government looks like right there. Isn't that right, David? Because that's rough. So, if you know, there's several rich dad advisors. There's Kenny and Tom. What does Tom do? Taxes. And what does Kenny do? Real estate. But of all the rich dad advisors, who is the smartest? Kenny, what are you talking about here, man? What is this? I can't win in my own house here. So if we were to draw Kenny's, does he have a financial statement?
Yeah.
Okay, and give me what they are again. One more time.
Income,
expenses, assets, liabilities. So Kenny, when you guys, what was your first business ever? First business. Tanner Brothers Lemonade. So you guys sold lemonade for years, right?
Yeah.
But last year you started a new business with Mom, didn't you, Zach?
Yep.
And what are you guys going to get into now? Real estate. And you've been working on the first rental home for you, right?
Yeah.
And so you're fixing it up, and we talked to property manager today. So you want to be like Kenny and have an asset like this, and watch where this goes. Now let's make a green arrow. Now this is called what kind of income? Active or passive? Passive income.
From the renter.
That is greater than the what?
The
expenses. And so this is the cash flow pattern of a rich person right here, because as long as that cash flow keeps coming, that's great. So what kind of education do you think is important in your life? What are some of the education you guys been doing in school? Academic, that's important, right? You have to learn how to read.
Yeah.
It helps. I never learned, so I'm working on it. How about math? Is that important?
Yeah, that's important.
You guys good at math?
Yeah.
What do you mean, pretty good? Yeah, you're pretty good. You're better than Dad. We've been doing this new, they got this core curriculum math, Now that we're homeschooled, these boys learning how to carry the one. Let me tell you what, 'cause Dad can't do that stuff. And so, but talk about your financial education. I mean, have you got a lot of that in school? No. So where have you gotten your financial education?
Fortune Builders and
Fortune Builders, Rich Dad. Okay, who are some of the people in your life that have taught you?
Robert,
Ben, Kenny. Me? I got credit finally?
Yeah.
A little bit. And so we play cash flow as a family. So what's fun about learning these financial statements is, can you do a financial statement on a person?
Yeah.
And that quick, you know where they're at, don't you?
Yeah.
Can you do a financial statement on a business?
Yeah.
And that quick, you know where they're at, right?
Yep.
Could you do a financial statement on the U.S. government?
Yes.
Should we try it?
Yeah.
We haven't checked in for a while. Should we check in the numbers?
Yeah.
All right, let's check in the numbers. So here we go. Let's draw one more financial statement. You guys tell me again, what do I put where?
Okay, you put the income at the top.
Okay.
The expenses.
Okay.
And assets.
All right. Liabilities. And let's just bring this up. I'll bet we could Google this. Let's Google the U.S. Where are we going?
U.S. debt clock.
U.S. debt. We check in on this once in a while, don't we, boys? So U.S. debt clock. And this just shows us from the Federal Reserve and other places, shows us how we're doing. Isn't that right?
Yep.
Whoops. So let's get rid of that little thing right there. So here we go. Let's make this big so people can see it. And we'll just size that up there. And right here, this is interesting. You said, David, that the government gets their money from taxes and spending. Well, where do they get the taxes from?
The gross.
The gross.
Domestic.
The
product.
GDP.
The GDP. So let's draw this out here. And we have a GDP right here of $21 trillion. Mm-hmm. And so you go mow someone's grass and you get $20. Then you go to the movies and that's another $20. And then the guy that went to the movie goes and buys his kid the iPad, and then the iPad people, and the same $20, $30, $40, $100 moves around. And every time it changes hands, what does the government do?
They take a little bit out of it.
They take a chunk out of your what? Never mind. We won't say that. This is 13. So do you guys like taxes?
No.
Well, it depends on if you're paying or using them, right?
Yeah.
So how much tax, let's see, are taxes going up right now or down right now? Yeah. Let's take a look. Are the federal tax revenue is going up or down? Down. It's going down because people are not what?
They're not making it.
The economy's slowing down, and all this money that's rotating around, it's kind of stopped, hasn't it?
Yeah.
So the government is hurting for cash, right?
Yes.
Oh, that's not good. So David, how much, can you read that? How much should I put in the income column here? How much?
3 trillion.
3.4 trillion. 3.4 trillion. We'll round it up. $3.4 trillion they bring in. You'd think you could run a house on that. Yeah. You'd think you could run a country on that. What do you think, boys?
Yeah.
You'd hope so, but okay. Let's see if we're at a surplus or deficit. So how much are we spending right now? Can anyone see where the spending is?
5.7 trillion.
$5.7 trillion.
Balanced budget.
Is that balanced budget?
No.
Is that a surplus or deficit?
Deficit.
What is a deficit?
It means
it's basically
negative cash flow.
It's like a negative cash flow.
Yeah.
Okay, what's a surplus?
It's a positive cash flow.
Positive cash flow. I can dig that. So these are important words to learn, right? Mm-hmm. You think people could learn this in the 6th, 7th, 8th grade, 4th grade?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they could. Okay, now here's what's interesting is on their assets, they're acting like our assets are theirs. They're saying household assets, small business assets. I mean, I guess if they can tax us, they can act like our assets are theirs. But I'm going to give them a big fat zero because they're not going to mortgage the White House, at least not yet. Yeah. And then we have 2 types of liabilities. Do you guys remember the 2 types of liabilities? Do you? It's all right if you don't. Well, the first is money that you borrow.
Yeah. And then it's a promise.
Promised money.
Oh, yeah.
What's the difference between borrowed money and promised money?
Borrowed money is like a credit card, and promised money is like if you get good grades, I promise, and you don't get a scholarship, I'll promise to pay for your college. That's right.
If I promise you to pay for your college, is that debt or a promise?
A promise.
That's a promise. But if I borrow money to buy a car, is that debt or is that borrowed or promised?
Borrowed.
That's borrowed. So how much money is the government borrowed? Can you find it on there?
Let's see. They borrowed.
National debt. Where's it at? How much have they borrowed?
24.3 trillion.
24.3 trillion. That is a lot of money. And if you look down here in the unfunded liabilities down here, it's 144 trillion that they have borrowed or promised.
Promise.
And what are these promises? Well, you got Medicare and Social Security money they promised. Yeah. So this is quite a deal here. What's the deficit at?
The deficit's at.
How would I figure that out?
By doing.
Do this math right here?
Yeah.
Okay, and the computer's done it for us right here. So how much is the deficit?
2.2.
2.2 trillion. Have you ever seen it that big?
No.
I've never seen it that big. Have you seen it that big, Kenny?
No. This is all this new QE stuff going on right now.
Now that you bring up a good point here. Kenny just brought up a good point on quantitative easing. So why don't we take a picture of this right here? We'll just take a picture of this. And I got to say, guys, do you think there's a more disastrous financial statement on planet Earth anywhere?
Probably not.
And this is going to be a big deal here as we get into some of this monetary policy. So let's erase all this ink and let's bring this back in here and let's just shrink that down to size, boys, right here. And let's get rid of this ugly debt clock. Yeah. And let's talk a little bit about 3 buildings, and we'll draw 3 buildings right here. Okay. So David, who's in charge of fiscal policy? Who's in charge of that?
Congress.
Congress. So let's draw Congress right here, a little Capitol building there, maybe a pillar there, and some steps to Congress. So this, we'll say, is Congress. And I don't know how to spell Congress, so you'd be in charge of that stuff. Okay, who does the monetary policy?
The Federal Reserve.
And their building looks like, what, about like this? Yeah. Have you guys been to both these buildings?
Yes.
Did we go to the Fed?
Yeah.
We actually went and took a little trip, a learning trip.
Yeah.
To Congress and the Fed. So the Fed has some windows like this and some pillars here and some windows like this. So this is the Fed. Yep. And then there's one more building that looks something like this called the Treasury.
Yeah.
And that's where they do this. So if that financial statement we talked about, new money, old money, borrowed money, which one is the Treasury doing? Are they doing new money, old money, or mostly borrowed now? Yeah, they have a little new money from taxes. They don't have any old money, so they're borrowing money. Yeah. So you have a bunch of bankers down here, a bunch of pension funds, a bunch of people, and they send money to the Congress. Isn't that right?
Yeah,
or to the Treasury. And what does the Treasury give them?
A Treasury bond.
A Treasury bond. Just like, what is a Treasury bond anyway?
It's a loan, basically a loan.
It's a loan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I have a Treasury bond, I've loaned money to the Treasury. If I have a corporate bond, I've loaned money to a corporation. If I have a municipal bond like a city, I've loaned money to a city. And if you ever have anything to do with bail bonds, we don't want to even talk about what those are. Okay, guys? I mean, that's for Garrett to figure out, right? All right, that's Garrett. What does Garrett do?
He does
law stuff.
Law stuff. Can you do your best Garrett impression, Garrett Sutton? Let's see. Okay, you do it. Here you go. Do your best.
We live in a very litigious society.
Very litigious society. Try that again.
We live in a very litigious society.
What should we do with our assets?
We should protect them.
Protect them from loss. Okay, we're back on track here. We got off track. So here's the Fed balance sheet right here. They have assets and liabilities.
Yeah.
So what does the Fed do with this bond right here? They buy that bond.
Yeah, they buy it.
Okay, so the bond is going to go here, and what do they give to these bankers in exchange for the bond?
Money.
Well, where's the money come from? There's nothing here.
They can print it.
What? They print it? How can you just print money?
Well, that's what they do.
That's what they do. So they print this money out of nothing, and they give this money back to the bankers, and then the bankers loan it to the Treasury, and the Treasury gives them a bond, and then the Fed buys that bond with money that they print out of
nowhere,
and it spirals out of control. Isn't that crazy? Does that make sense to you guys?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me. But it's kind of crazy how that works, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So the name of this, and Kenny mentioned this, is called, well, there's code for it. The first thing they might say is they say, well, we're going to expand the balance sheet of the Federal Reserve, right? They might say that.
Yeah.
Or they might say we're going to do what's called quantitative easing, or well, just a QE for short. And they've done a lot of this, boys, this QE over and over and over again. And the fear is if they do too much of that, what might happen?
Hyperinflation.
Do you know what countries what country went through this most recently? I don't know if you do. We got to study this. Venezuela is going through this right now.
Really?
Yep, right now, Venezuela. And they shouldn't, because they have the most oil. So if you guys were going to give some education to the people listening, and they were nervous about the dollars, because think about this. If you look at your financial statement, where are the savings? Where's the savings account, the financial statements? It's in the asset column, but we want the asset column to go up in value. If the dollar loses all of its value, the asset goes
down.
So is saving money a good idea?
No.
So what about borrowing money?
Yeah, you could do that.
Yeah.
You like what would happen if you borrowed the money? Would that be good?
You could borrow a little and then just pay back the same amount in dollars that aren't worth as much.
Say that again.
You can borrow money and then pay back the same amount in dollars that are not worth as much.
So in one way you might
from a 12-year-old.
So from one way you might say that you're buying real estate, but really what Kenny's doing is he's taking a short position on the US dollar, hasn't he? And Kenny goes out and finds the good deals, and then he gets investors, right? And so if he has the investors putting up the equity and the bank's putting up the debt, what's his return going to be if he doesn't have any money in the deal? Infinite return. And that's what you guys want, isn't it?
Yeah.
Someday maybe you'll get there. But let's say for the short term, someone was listening to you guys and they said, hey, you guys seem to have studied this a little bit. I'm scared that my paper money might go down in value. What might you suggest they invest in?
Buy gold
and silver.
Some gold. Now,
Commodity.
do you guys have any silver?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you never tell anybody how much silver you have. But you think you have more than the average 12-year-old?
Yeah.
Probably. But where'd you get that money from? Selling lemonade.
Yeah.
So that's good. Hey, what's the secret to selling great lemonade?
Good advertising.
Good advertising. What else?
Having good lemonade.
Having good lemonade. That's called value.
Yeah.
And in any business you do, if you have good value, that's a leg up on the competition. So this is a nice gold bar, and we've got a little bit more, hidden away different places. And does this cash flow though?
Not really.
No, it's really what we call a hedge.
Yeah.
It's a hedge against inflation.
Insurance.
It's insurance. Yeah, that's exactly what it is, against a falling dollar. So that's kind of a mess there, I guess. But that's, what
I have a question for the boys.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, boys, great job, first of all, on fiscal and monetary policy.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is you guys understand this right now, and you're only 12 and 14 years old. But let me ask you this. We know that the Fed's gonna print at least $6 to $10 million of money.
Trillion.
Or sorry, $6 to $10 trillion of money to keep the economy going. What do you guys think is going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years as a result of all that money coming in right now?
Hyperinflation.
Well, I don't think it's going to
Say
be
it loud.
Hyperinflation.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be as bad as Zimbabwe, but maybe it could be.
Sure. And hyperinflation is what?
It's where the dollar goes down in value because they've printed too much.
That's right.
Scarce.
Tell me about being less scarce.
There's more of it.
There's too much of it.
Yeah.
Is gold scarce?
Yeah.
No.
There's a
Interesting.
limited.
Yes.
Limited supply.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Well, what an incredible lesson, boys. What an incredible lesson. Did you guys teach this to anybody in your class, or does anybody listen?
Oh, David.
What?
Oh, this is.
David went on for like an hour doing this.
David, tell them the story about when we got back from Australia. What happened?
When we got back from Australia, my teacher wanted me to tell the class what I did there, and I went on for like an hour and a half.
Teaching this?
Uh-huh.
Nice.
Well, Robert had invited us to go talk about infinite returns in Australia.
Yeah.
And so he said, I went to Australia and we talked about infinite returns. And all of a sudden the teacher said, what's an infinite return? And then this kid asked a question. So he did Q&A for the teacher emailed me, says, your kid did Q&A for 90 minutes to his class. And we were so embarrassed. We said, why don't you get the hook and pull him off? But
that's awesome.
He did a good job. We're proud of him.
Well, you guys, thank you very, very much for the lesson. I think everybody learned a lot here, and it's going to be very interesting times, boys. So congratulations on your first rental too. I'm very excited about that.
Thanks.
What do you say to Kenny?
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
And not only for that, but for all you've taught us, Kenny. Kenny's a wonderful mentor to my boys, and I'm just so lucky because they know their dad isn't very smart. But being around the rich dad advisors, they get to learn about legal, they get to learn about taxes, and from you, they've learned real estate, and they've said, well, that's what they want to do. I can't talk them into stocks. So they love the real estate. You guys like that debt, don't you?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
there
you keep that rental, and you'll pay, and the tenant will pay it off for you. But also, if you have any balance left, you'll pay it off, as David said, with cheaper dollars, right?
Yeah.
That's the plan.
All right, boys. Thank you again. I appreciate it. And Andy, thank you very, very much.